Yes, and we're back live, ladies and gentlemen. We're back live, and it's wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. I have several things to discuss. Let's talk first about, I know we talked very briefly about it, but next week, you guys go back to the 84-minute class periods. And yes, I know what you're talking about, allowing people the opportunity to catch up. That's mainly aimed at core classes. You know what I'm saying? Because obviously core classes, like, you need to, pass. This is an elective class, An elective class is not entirely necessary. It doesn't count as a core class, things of that nature. But, it is what it is. But next week, it'll be 84 minutes, and it'll be weird getting back to that schedule because I like my afternoon naps after y'all leave. It's great. Oh, man, he caught me. I don't nap. Would you be at? That's true. That's true. Would you be at all surprised if I slept with my eyes open?
No. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be karate in your basement.
Oh, I wish I had a basement. There.
Wait, you do karate?
No. No. I think it's karate. You got to talk to Aschenbach about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just convince Josh of anything. He would believe it.
That's true.
I was in his class. I know. Mr. Market is a pretty believable person.
That's true. That's true. I have so many stories. You don't even believe. Gosh. When next week, when we have more time, I may be able to share with you like some awesome stories that have happened to me. Just saying.
I definitely believe it.
Yeah. I'm just saying. It's pretty crazy. I don't know. You know what's really funny about that, though? No, I have a story about that. But it's not my story. Now, for those of you in the chat, he can't hear it, but he said about the time that I was on SEALs Team 6. When they caught Osama bin Laden, the very next day, I was out of school. I wasn't here. Legitimate. This is a true thing. I was not in school the next day, completely unrelated. Liston texts me halfway through the day, and he's just like, hey, some of the kids are jokingly saying that you're out of school because you're debriefing from the assassination of Osama bin Laden. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, so I've been telling people that, yeah, you and I did that, and that's why I have like a cut on my forehead. I'm like, what? I'm like, that's pretty crazy. So when I come back, like at that point, like, okay, you see these like orange boards, see why they're empty and stuff. In the past, like kids, well, obviously this is before COVID, but kids would draw pictures of me in like humorous ways. It's awesome. I've kept every single one, unless it's inappropriate, of course, But one of the pictures, and I got to find it later, is a picture. It's like of a helicopter in the Middle East, and like Liston and I rappelling down and gonna go take out bin Laden. So, SEAL Team 6. So, not really true, but I do have a story related to that. I do have a story related to it. I do. It's insane. There's like a 75% chance. Yeah. But anyway, to today. My goal for today, I want to talk about a couple of modular multiplication problems that we're going to do together. I'm going to give you an opportunity to try them on your own. I want to talk about one-way functions. And Alice and Bob.
I really hate that I got this class right after algebra.
Oh, but it's going to be so much cooler than that.
It sucks
Yeah.
so much.
See, because the whole idea of one-way functions relies on a very old mathematical idea with prime numbers and modular arithmetic. And the reason that we need to focus so much on RSA cryptography is because for the last 50 years, RSA cryptography, I should say, is the reason why you are able to purchase anything online and not have your information stolen. Yeah. No, not even. Zuckerberg came around in 2005, something like that. Would you believe that I was one of the first million people on Facebook?
Yeah.
I was. I legitimately was. Yeah.
I mean, a million's a lot of people.
Yeah, but there's like 50 million people now. I was within the first year of Facebook. You guys weren't even like
One.
Yeah, you're 1. Shut your face. Anyway, cool. So I do have a video on that, and I want to talk about prime numbers. And the importance of prime numbers. And if we have time, I'm going to talk about the sieve of Eratosthenes. The sieve of Eratosthenes. It's a very famous mathematical concept for finding prime numbers. But again, whatever we don't get done today, it's going to bleed into Thursday, which is fantastic. I also found something on my jump drive from 2006. It was a paper that I wrote about the importance of prime numbers, and the paper does mention RSA cryptography.
Well, I mean,
Fantastic.
Prime numbers are every other number.
No, they're not.
If you don't have any prime numbers, then you don't have like what, a quarter of the numbers. Like a lot of numbers that you would.
Okay, first of all, they're not every other number. Second of all, prime numbers.
Everything I just said was wrong.
Yes, it was. Prime numbers. If you didn't have prime numbers, you're like, well, you wouldn't have like a quarter of the numbers. No, if you didn't have prime numbers, you wouldn't have any of the numbers. Any of the numbers. Anyway, back to this. So first thing, I want to upload a PDF. I want to upload a PDF to your Google Classroom stream, which is going to have the problems that I would like to work on to begin today. Make sure I get the right PDF here. It should be in this file. And it's not. Okay, well, it's probably on this jump drive then. Silly thing, you. I need to save my information to the same location every time. That would be helpful. Let's see. There it is. I found you. There's the PDF for today. Post. Duplicate. Open up. Lumen PDF. Continue. Here we go. So this was uploaded to your Google Classroom stream so that you don't have to stare at the board. But basically, this is your modular multiplication practice for the beginning class. I would suggest that you write out, as the directions say, write out your plain and cipher alphabets for each exercise. You are to encrypt the following quotation using a multiplication shift of 15. The quotation being, why is it we entertain the belief that for every purpose, odd numbers are the most effectual? Obviously, for the question mark, you do not need to encode the question mark. But then, exercise 2, you are to decrypt the following statement, assuming it uses a multiplicative shift of 9. I want to see what you can do with that. So as a reminder, in terms of these multiplicative shifts, if you go back into your Google Classroom stream, there is a mod 26 multiplication table, which I'm going to open up right here, that you can use for those multiplication shifts. So you do not have to do the calculations yourself, which would be fantastic. And if you notice, 15 and 9, do they have any factor in common with 26? Do they have any factor in common? What are the factors of 26?
13.
And 2. That's it, right? So as long as you don't do a multiplicative shift of an even number, and as long as you don't do a multiplicative shift of a multiple of 13, then you're fine. So let's see what you guys can do with that. I'm going to leave you to it for the next little block of time while I double check attendance. 17 and 9. Okay. Just as a small suggestion for organizing your plain alphabet and your cipher alphabet. If you notice right here, I wrote out the alphabet from A to Z, and I also wrote out the numbers from that row of 15. And typically what I would do is, well, I would do my alphabet song, but I would count it as numbers. So it'd be like A, B, where's 2? C. I sound very hesitant when I'm singing. D, E, F, G. I know it does, right? I know. I lost my place. I got to start again. No, I'm kidding. I can't find 7. There it is. H. Where's 8? There it is. H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. There we go. But that is probably, in my opinion, the easiest way to utilize that row of the multiplicative of 15. To use that row and to write out that cipher alphabet. I'm going to do the same thing for 9. I'm going to do the same thing for 9 in a minute because I'll need that in order to decipher that second question. But I just wanted to kind of show you that if you're looking for some kind of organizational structure for your plain text versus your cipher text. There are ways of like programming this stuff. For those of you who have interest in like computer programming, there's definite ways of just like writing a short program that could just spit this entire thing out for you, letter for letter. But that's a conversation that you got to have with the sellers. I'm going to do the same thing for 9. we go. Couple ways that you can midway confirm that you haven't made a huge mistake yet. Typically with this multiplication shift, when you get to the letter N is typically 13 because it is, well, not exactly the halfway point, but since N is 13 and that is a multiple of 26, then N just changes to N when you get through there. It just so happens to do that with this mod 26 table. You could see it like right down this center portion right here, where it's 0, 13 the entire way down. I'm gonna freeze my screen. Freeze. Gotta get something else here. Wait, no, I want playlists. Leave on here. Playlists. There we go. Technology. Oh.
Last week,
We'll lower that.
how do you encode? How do you encrypt the first one? Because like, I think I did it the opposite way.
All right, let's take a look. Hold on. Oh, wait, it's already duplicated. I got to unfreeze. Unfreeze. There we go. So, encrypting when you're going from plain text to ciphertext, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I go to here, I have my plain text. 15. Here we go. Here's the 15 one. I labeled it. The regular alphabet is your plain text. So, for example, Y, the word Y. W would go to S. And then H would go to B. And then Y would go to W. Yep. So obviously you got to know what direction. I mean, it's a very good question. What direction did I actually go on this thing? So let me actually try to write it out myself and see what we get here. So Y is it. That we. Entertain. Now, if you notice, whenever you get to an A, it's always an A, and whenever you get to an N, it's always an N. Enter. Running out of space here. Entertain the belief. Now, as it always typically is with encoding and decoding, a lot of the time it can be tedious. There are certain words that repeat, and there are certain letters that we can not memorize, but just kind of like, oh yeah, I remember what that one was. So I ran out of room, but this is what I got so far. That seemed about sufficient, or not sufficient, but seemed like pretty on the nose what you got so far. Yeah. Obviously, for the sake of time, I'm going to have to bypass this because I do have other things that I want to get to. But yeah, the important thing, the very important thing, is that you have the proper alphabet lined up and that you are able to use it correctly. That is the most important thing. Because obviously, if you have the wrong alphabet or if you're going in the wrong direction, you will not have the same ciphertext. That's what we want. Anybody just jump to the second one to decipher it? Because I have not. But I did write out my alphabet. I wrote out my alphabet for that row of 9, and you can see that right here for the multiplicative shift. Let me see what the heck is going on here. So let's see. SKVVG. So this one, we'd be going backwards. I'll do the first one first. SKVVG. Cool. So I just did the first one right here. Check this out. Check the order that I'm doing here. So Josh, this is kind of what you were asking about the direction, right? Now that I'm going backwards, now that I'm deciphering, where's S? S. I go back to C. K. V, V. G. Yeah. Which clearly after the first word, I'm like, I think I'm on the right track. You know? So let's see what goes on with this. AXK. AXK. Cells are PLK. Can you take a guess what PLK might end up being? If I say cells are, yeah, probably the, and it is. If you actually work out the cipher, it is the word the. Sometimes you can use that language to your advantage, which is why in Bletchley Park during World War II, a lot of those people needed to know how to speak fluent German in order to figure out the proper, syllable use or grammar or adjectives or things of that nature. So, JKGP. JKGP. Cells are the best. That's what I got so far. Cells are the best what? EAP. EAP. LKE. LKE. Where's E? Oh, okay. Look at the word that I got so far. Look at the word that I got up there so far. Something. Mathematics, mathematicians. What are we going on here? I got the first 6 letters. APU. APU. SUA. SU. Letter U. There it is. A. NG. NG. Cells are the best mathematicians. But there's more letters. Cells are the best mathematicians. B, E. We did?
Yeah.
When did we do this one?
I just realized.
We did this one?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, what y'all tell me? Now you broke my heart. I thought it was a hilarious joke.
Come on, Josh.
I blame Josh on this one.
I laughed at it last night.
Well, laugh again. Yes, because they divide. I apologize. I thought that we hadn't done this one yet. That's right, he did. Dude, this is what the 3-day weekend did to me. Come on. I haven't seen you guys since what, Thursday?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. Okay. So, modular arithmetic, modular addition, modular multiplication, all of this fun, weird stuff that we got going on here. I have a video for you to watch. You'll see in a minute. Now, it's like a 10-minute video. Hopefully it won't get me banned from YouTube again. Okay?
I was laughing so hard when
I know.
So we risk it.
I was like,
Oh yeah, we're gonna risk it.
you got copyright.
Now-
Was that a YouTube watching his channel or something?
Maybe.
Like, reported him.
For the sake of argument,
So I was like,
for the sake of argument, for those that are in the live stream right now, if something does happen, I am posting the link to the video in the Google Classroom stream, number one. But if something happens to the link, I will or to the stream, I will try to get a new stream up as soon as possible. And hopefully I won't get banned again. My word. But here we go. I do have a bit of a video that I want to show you here. First, the guy talks about a different video that he did, but the main focus of this is RSA cryptography. You're not necessarily going to know exactly how it works because it does give an oversimplified view as to how it works. But I want you to think about it.
We took a look at how AES encryption works, which is a very secure and very fast encryption algorithm that is used all over the world in many different applications. But the speed of AES, it doesn't just come from the fact that the algorithm is optimized to be fast, but it also comes from the fact that it is a symmetric encryption algorithm. And this also allows it to churn through and encrypt or decrypt many gigabytes of data very, very quickly. However, there is one major limitation to symmetric encryption schemes, and that is the fact that they use a single key to encrypt and decrypt the data. And that would need to be shared amongst all of the people that need to retrieve the plain text data from its encrypted form. So these symmetric encryption schemes.
So you don't have to understand what he's explaining right now, but you do need to understand the following. If I am going to send a secure message to someone, a friend, whoever, first I need to lock away that message. Then I need to send that locked message to that person, but then that person has to have a way of unlocking the message in order to read it. Me locking it is the encryption, and then them unlocking it is the decryption. But how are they supposed to unlock it if I have not given them the key? Oh, Mr. Markey, just send them the key. Okay, but if I send them the key, what's to stop someone from intercepting that message? What is to stop someone from using my key and that encrypted data and unlocking the information for themselves? Absolutely nothing. That's the major issue with sending secure data.
They wouldn't really be appropriate for certain things, like sending an email, for example, because you would have to first transmit your encryption key to somebody in plain text before you then send them an encrypted message for them to decrypt with that key. But if somebody is sniffing traffic on the network, and of course, if that network is the internet, if we're sending anything across the internet, you have to assume that somebody always is sniffing the traffic. So in that instance, they would be able to intercept that encryption key that you sent and use it to decrypt all of the encrypted messages that you transmit over the wire. So how can we get around this? Well, back in the day, you would have people that just met up in secret. They would probably meet up in person in order to exchange keys because they wouldn't want to give them over the phone or over a telegraph for fear of somebody listening in on them. It was possible, even on those networks, to intercept somebody's encryption keys. But obviously, that solution isn't really going to work for trying to communicate to somebody that you're physically separated from, or that it would be burdensome to meet up with in person, like if they're in another city or if they're on the other side of the world. So this is where asymmetric encryption, or public key cryptography, as it's also called, comes into play. And the asymmetric encryption algorithm that we're going to take a look at today is RSA. So the name RSA, it comes from its creators. It's just created from their names. So their creators are Ron Rivest, pictured in the middle here, and then Adi Shamir, posted on the left here, and Leonard Adelman over here on the right. And these guys are basically three cryptography geniuses that came up with this algorithm. And the way that it works at a high level, and kind of the way that all asymmetric encryptions work, is that you have a private key. So we'll call that key A. And you want to keep this key a secret. So don't share it with anyone, don't tell anyone what it is. Make sure that there's no screenshots of it or anything like that. And then you have a public key. We'll call that key B, which you're going to give to anybody who you want to be in contact with. So put this in all of your signatures, put it in the about section of your social media, write it on a billboard, whatever you want to do. So this public key is going to let your friends decrypt messages that you encrypted with your private key, and of course, vice versa. And your friends, they're also going to have their own key pair as well. So they'll have a private key, and then you'll have their public key, because again, that's going to be published everywhere. It's going to be in the about section of all of their social medias. So if your friends wanted to send a message to you, and we don't want anybody to eavesdrop on this message, we want to make sure it's secure and we avoid the whole problem with AES key exchange like I explained earlier, they can just encrypt it with your public key. And the only key that can unlock that is your private key. So they can send it across the wire.
Now I want to specify something. This is what I was talking about with one-way functions. The idea is this. Alice wants to send Bob a message. Bob's public key is out there for anyone to take. So Alice types in Bob's email address, which utilizes his public key. Anyone can have it. And it encrypts Alice's email. Now, the key with it being a one-way function means that Bob's public key cannot unlock it. It can't. It was encrypted one way, and it can't go back. But when that message finds its way to Bob, look, Alice, her plain text email, she encrypts using Bob's public key, which now it's ciphered. It's sent. Eve intercepts it. Oh, she can't do anything with it because she doesn't know what the private key is. Nobody knows what the private key is. The private key of Bob is the only thing that will decrypt it. Alice can't even decrypt it because it was encrypted using Bob's public key. So the email is sent. Eve doesn't know what to do. Bob receives this email, and the email, well, this is what email servers do automatically. They now use Bob's private key to decrypt it, which is the only way that it could have been done. And now he can read the email. It's a one-way function, meaning just because the public key encrypts it, that's all it can do. It can't decrypt it. There are one-way functions that are out there in the mathematical realm, which for generations people believed were useless. But now there is a way of doing it. Back to this.
No worries that anyone's going to be able to see it, and then you unlock it with your private key and you're able to see the message. And then when you want to reply, you use your friend's public key to encrypt your message, and again, only their private key is going to be able to unlock it. So the public key, it really kind of works more like a lock in this scenario, even though we still call it a key. Now, in the case of RSA, the messages that we're going to be encrypting is most likely just going to be the key to another encryption algorithm like AES. And the reason for this is that you can't actually encrypt a lot of information with RSA. You can only encrypt data whose size is less than or equal to your RSA key size, which is typically going to be 248 bits or 256 bytes. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle room for there. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to send an email, you can just create a text file and start typing out some words into it and see how many words you can get to in only 256 bytes. It's not a whole lot. But luckily, the maximum key size for AES is 256 bits. So RSA, it has more than enough bits to encrypt our AES key, which is then going to be used to encrypt the body of the message, since there's really no limit to how much data AES can encrypt. So we can have the body of our email, we can have all of our attachments and things like that be encrypted with AES. So then we can send that AES key, but it's encrypted with RSA along to our friend on the other side of the internet. So we're not running into that same problem that I mentioned earlier, where you exchange the AES key because it's not being exchanged in plain text. An eavesdropper, they can't get anything from our key exchanges. So he has neither of our private keys. He can't unlock it. And of course, the body of the messages, they are encrypted with AES or a similar algorithm, so he can't get access to those either. Now, another interesting thing that you can do with RSA is you can encrypt data with your private key.
I'm going to skip ahead ever so slightly.
Did most modern
Just skip
systems do
that.
when they
I just want to skip ahead ever so slightly to get to a very particular part.
message will before read the message he requires on the keys. Been any modifications to the
Here we
message
go.
because of course that would require the keys. So how does this all work? Really, it's all based on prime numbers, which come up a lot in cryptography. So large prime numbers are also used in the Diffie-Hellman key exchange. But the cool thing about prime numbers is that if you multiply two of them together, the result is a number that can only be evenly divided by those two prime numbers, and then of course itself and 1, because everything is divisible by itself and 1. So let's say that you have a number like 5183. It would be pretty difficult for you to figure out what those numbers are divisible by, even with a calculator. What you would probably do to basically brute force this on your own is you would start trying to divide by 3 and then 7 and then 11. You would basically start trying to divide.
5183. Find me the factors. Go. 5183.
No.
You can't use 1 in the number itself. He skipped 2 because obviously it's not even. He skipped 5 because it doesn't end in a 0 or a 5.
By these different prime numbers and so on. And then eventually you would discover that these are divisible by 71 and 73. But you would still end up guessing a lot of different numbers. So if you factor together two very large prime numbers, much, much larger than 73 and 71, it would take a really long time to reverse engineer that, even if you're using a supercomputer to do many, many guesses per second. And you're probably wondering at this point, just how large do these prime numbers have to be? Well, let's take a look at a certificate that I'm using with DuckDuckGo here.
And you can find this on any computer.
So we'll take a look at View Certificate. And we'll scroll down here to the public key info. So we can see that our key size here, 2048, and that the algorithm is RSA. And the modulus, so here is our number here, but currently it's being displayed in hexadecimal. So it's actually a little bit shorter than it normally would be. I've already converted this to decimal and written it out. And this is what it looks like.
You can't really see it well at the top, but that string of little white stuff at the top, that's all one giant number. That's one number.
So very, very large number. It's about, 617 digits long. So yeah, you're not going to be able to guess the prime numbers that are used to create this, even if you're brute forcing it with a supercomputer. So this mechanism is essentially used to create the key pairs in a relatively fast way, but obviously it's going to be very slow and difficult.
Here's the thing you got to know. RSA relies heavily on prime numbers in order to encrypt the data. It relies on prime numbers and modular arithmetic. See, the thing is, prime numbers appear to be random. They appear to be random. In fact, okay, so if I asked you, could you list out for me, or not list out for me, but could you come up with an equation that could generate any even number, like f of x equals this? You could plug in anything you want and it would always spit out an even number. Yeah, or 2x, I should say, right? 2x, you plug in a function, or you plug in a number, I should say, f of x equals 2x. You can generate any even number you want. The first even number, plug in a 1, you get 2. The second even number, you plug in a 2, you get 4. What about square numbers? What function could you use? Easiest question in the world, I hope. What function could you use in order to generate a list of squared numbers? Close. Yeah, because if you plug in a 1, what do you get back? 1. You plug in a 2, what do you get back? 4. You plug in a 5, what do you get back? 25. Would this theoretically produce a list of all possible prime numbers? I'm sorry, prime numbers, squared numbers. Yes. And here's the key. There is no such function that will produce a list of prime numbers. It's never been done. It's called now, there is a theory about it. There is a theory about it that has to do with something called the Riemann hypothesis, which was posed back in the 1850s. And it is the holy grail of mathematics. If someone were to prove the Riemann hypothesis, they would be the most important mathematician that ever lived. Because if you can prove the Riemann hypothesis, then you can theoretically map out all future prime numbers. The reason why that is so important is because of the scarcity of finding prime numbers. Because we don't know how to map prime numbers, that means that your computer transactions are secure. If you could crack the code to prime numbers, you could crack the code to all internet security.
So basically, you shouldn't do this.
Well, I'm saying that it is the holy grail of mathematics. Now, back in the year 1900, there was a mathematical conference in which a mathematician by the name of David Hilbert presented 23 problems. And he said, listen, these 23 problems will influence the next century of mathematics. He was so adamant. They became known as the Hilbert problems. They became very famous unto themselves. And one of them, actually, was the Riemann hypothesis. Now, in 100 years, those 23 problems were all solved, except for the Riemann hypothesis. It was the only one that remained unsolved. Then in the year 2000, the Clay Mathematical Institute put out 7 mathematical problems that they called the millennial problems. And they said, just like Hilbert did in the year 1900, the Clay Institute is putting forth these 7 problems, and they will influence the next 100 years. Now, of those 7 problems, a couple of them have been solved, but the Riemann hypothesis remains one of those 7 problems. It is the holy grail of mathematics. Just saying. If it were able to be solved, it would unlock everything. It's insane. That is how important prime numbers are. Now, what I want to do with the time that we have, because we have roughly 10 minutes, I want to show you an oversimplified version of Alice and Bob using modular arithmetic. So if you do not already have them out, I'm going to need those notebooks out and open.
I'm didn't hear a word.
I feel like the two of you need your own TV sitcom.
It just made Mr. Markey rambling.
No, not me, you two. I think it'd be awesome if I had a podcast.
Just an hour a day. We just record this class. We just whisper to each other. Occasional lessons.
Right. Let's talk about Alice and Bob. Let's talk about Alice and Bob. Now, the general idea is this. Alice and Bob agree to a public key. They agree to a public key. Let's say it's this. Y to the X mod P. Y to the X power mod P. That's the public key. Everybody knows that key. Everybody. Now, there are certain rules that have to go along with it. Y and P should be relatively prime. Now, what that means is they have to be two numbers that have no factors in common. Oh, someone get that? They have to be two numbers that have no factors in common, like 5 and 12. Obviously, 1 doesn't count. Or it could be something like, what was the one we did today? 9. We did a multiplication shift of 9 and 26. 9 and 26 have nothing in common. They don't have to be prime numbers, but they have to be relatively prime to each other. So for the sake of argument, let's say that they used this. 7 to the X mod 11. 7 to the X mod 11. Now, we've done stuff like this before, but now let's see how it's actually going to work out in practice. Now, Alice has a private key. She does not let anyone know this private key. Alice has a private key, A equals 3. I'm just going to keep it very simple. Obviously, it doesn't have to be just a single-digit number, but I'm giving you a simplistic view of things.
Has to be a prime number.
Not the private key. Not the private key. If anything has to be something, I'll make note of it. Like Y and P, they should be relatively prime, meaning they have no factors in common. So in this case, I use 7 and 11. So what Alice does is she uses that public key, 7 cubed. She puts that 3 in for the X, mod 11. Now, trust me on this, because we hopefully understand how modulars are going to work in this case. 7 cubed is like 343. You divide it by 11, and you get the remainder. The remainder is 2. So Alice sends this 2 to Bob. Now, notice the symbol that I used at the bottom. What's that symbol look like to you? It looks like a fish. It's actually the Greek letter alpha. It's the Greek letter alpha. But it's like a fish. Yeah. So now Alice still has her private key. She has not let anyone know her private key, but she sends the number 2 to Bob. So sending this 2 to Bob, that 2 could be intercepted, right? It could be intercepted. That's okay. That is perfectly fine. Now, what does Bob do? Bob has a private key. He doesn't even let Alice know this private key. Let's say that his private key is 6. He doesn't let anyone know that private key. So he puts that 6 into the public key that they agreed upon. And this ends up being a 4. So what does Bob do with that 4? He sends that number to Alice. No one knows that number 6 that Bob has. He has a private key of 6. But he sends that 4 to Alice. And he sends, this is the Greek letter beta. This is the Greek letter beta. It's slightly tilted with a little tail on the end. He sends that to Alice. The entire time, Eve knows a lot of information. Eve knows the public key. Eve knows that Alice sent a 2 to Bob. Eve knows that Bob sent a 4 to Alice. She knows all of that information. But if I label something as private, that means that Alice only knows her private key and Bob only knows his private key. So then what happens? As a result of this, Alice gets beta equal 4. She gets that information, and she uses her private key. Remind me, what was Alice's private key? Her private key. Remember, she sent a 2 to Bob. Oh, sorry, she sent a 2 to Bob. So I'm sorry, that was a 2. No, that was a 4, right? Yeah, she gets a 4. So say it again. 3, yes. Her capital A was a 3. She gets that 4 from Bob. She gets the beta from Bob. She has her private key. So look what she does. She puts them together into this modular. That's mod 11. I had a tough time writing that modular. Out spits a 9. Out spits a 9. Bob gets alpha equal 2, and he has his private key. What was Bob's private key again? 6. And he throws that information together in the way that they agreed upon. And lo and behold, what does it spit out? But a 9. The only way that this happens is by Alice using her private key and Bob using his private key, which nobody knows except Alice knows her and Bob knows his. But by performing this calculation in the right way, they both end up with a 9, and now they can both use that 9 to decipher things, to encrypt things, to do whatever the heck they want to do with. And Eve has no idea. This could be the key that they agreed upon, the key that they exchanged. We got a 9. That means we should be using the multiplicative shift of 9. Or, we got a 9. That means we should do a Caesar shift of 9. Or, we got a 9. That means we do this with whatever it was that we agreed upon. Eve has absolutely no idea. Alice only finds out this 9 once she gets this 4 from Bob. Bob only figures out that 9 once he gets this 2 from Alice. But here's the thing. The only way you're going to figure this out is if you have the private keys. Because check this out. Eve doesn't have that. And Eve doesn't have that. There's no stinking way that she's going to be able to figure out what that exponent is. Obviously, the larger the number that you use, the more difficult it is to guess and check. If you used like a 10-digit number or some junk like that, what the heck? Eve is never going to figure that junk out.
No,
And she's never going to figure out that 9.
I would imagine it's a lot more complicated than these simple non-functions.
Yes.
So is it multiple of these going into the same encryption?
So to speak. RSA cryptology is way oversimplified, mind you. Way oversimplified. But it's just trying to give you an idea as to, this can only be solved one way. I sent out the public key, but I kept the private key for myself. And because I kept the private key for myself, no one can figure it out, except for me. That's how you can send emails without people stealing them. Anyway, we're going to pick up with this on Thursday. Sieve of Eratosthenes, prime numbers. I got all of that for you, but we'll deal with that. And on Thursday, we're going to begin Enigma Phase 2. I love Enigma Phase 2.
Calendar of aristocracies.
Sieve of Eratosthenes. Not even close. If you haven't left a comment in the chat, please make sure that you do so. I'm going to leave it open for a few more moments.
Potato, potato.
potato, potato. It's written the same on the card. There's an amazing SNL opening monologue by Christopher Walken where he does that song, Potato, Potato, but he sings it Potato, Potato, and then eventually Jimmy Fallon comes out to correct him, but he says, Jimmy, it's written the same on the card. It's amazing.
Great, Dan.
See you guys.